All right, we're ready. Let's go ahead and call the meeting of the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission for Wednesday, August 3rd, 2022 to order, and I'll talk a little bit slower so that Jen can come down and do the roll call. I might have jumped the gun. All right, that'll take us on to item number 2, which is public comment. Is there any public comment?
I have Michael DiMartini.
I'm on there just for certain items, and not this item.
We got it.
Oh, that's okay.
All right, moving on to item number 3, approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Got a motion by Drinkwater, second by Hauk. Anybody like to provide public comment?
Yes, thank you. This is one of the items I listed, I believe. Thank you. Good afternoon. Michael DiMartini with Meridian Company Engineering. Regarding this agenda item, my concern relates to item number 8 on the agenda. That's a public hearing. And regarding that item, I think there's a couple things that are relevant. One is that in the past, the commission, prior commissions always had the meetings, the public hearings, at a time when it was convenient for the public to attend. So they were typically held in the evenings or on the weekends. And so I think that's important. The other part of that would be that this item should be scheduled at a time to do that, as well as verifying to be sure that all the prior meeting minutes, final prior meeting minutes, are available to the public because it's relevant to, obviously, the public hearing. And then lastly, it would be well to accommodate the public by having an electronic forum so that they can make comments from their workplace or wherever they are via Zoom or electronically. And right now there doesn't seem to be a provision to do that. So I'd ask for that item to be moved to a later time. Thank you.
Moving on to item number 4, approval of the minutes from the June 1st, 2022 Nevada Water Planning Commission meeting. Looking for a motion. Motion by Emil. Second by Melton. Is there any public comment on this item?
Yes, thank you. Regarding this item, Michael DiMartini again, Meridian Company. Regarding these minutes and prior minutes, I would like to re-emphasize the need to make those minutes available to the public once they're fully approved. I've gone back over, I think that was a consensus a while ago, and I've gone back over the minutes for the last meeting since, I think, December. I can't find any, at least in my look, I couldn't find any evidence of final minutes being approved as they were updated. Available. Thank you.
All right, is there any other public comment? Thank you. I've got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. That'll take us on to item number 5, which is action, discussion, and possible direction to staff and acceptance of revisions to Table 2-1 Water Resources Baseline Table for Washoe County within Chapter 2 Water Resources of the Draft 2021-2040 Comprehensive Regional Water Management Plan. Ms. Rigdon.
Thank you, Chairman Solero and members of the Commission. Item 5 is, staff is seeking approval for some revisions that were done to Table 2-1 of the Chapter 2 Water Resources chapter of the recent 2021-2040 update to the Regional Water Management Plan. Table 2-1 is the basis for the consensus forecast review, and that's an analysis to determine if sustainable water resources are sufficient to meet the demands of projected growth in the planning area. As a part of the 2021-2040 plan update, the table was revised in February of 2019, and I received comments when I came on in 2022 to retake a look at the table and validate the information in the table because it was a couple years before the table had been approved and brought before the board. So in doing that, I revisited the table and updated all the information with the most current data from the State Engineer's Office and that information is taken from the hydrographic area summaries that the State Engineer's Office provides. Both the 2019 version and the updated 2020 version are in the staff agenda packet, a staff report attachment. And the revisions that I've made were more related to the water rights information, the allocations from the State Engineer's Office, that those fluctuate slightly as the State Engineer makes determinations. And so that information was updated in basins 83, 84, 87, 89, 91, 92 A and B, 99, and 21. The other changes that were made were the estimated perennial yield was modified. It was corrected for basin 87, 88, and that's the primary Central Truckee Meadows, Truckee River Basin. I think there was just an edit challenge in the 2019 version. We also took a look at the imported exported supplies column and the estimated M&I commitments column and the subsequent comments that go with those. And those particular items seem to be a little bit supplemental, and some of the information was out of date. So we decided that information, until we received more updated information, would be omitted from the current revision of the table. So we stuck with what the State Engineer's Office has allocated as the current permitted water rights in those areas, in those basins, those allocations. So the modifications and corrections to the data resulted in a change in the estimated sustainable water resources from 217,978 acre feet in the 2019 table to 192,988 acre feet in the 2022 update. And so the 2022 revisions are really more in alignment with the historical sustainable water resources estimates in the previous historical regional water management plans and subsequent amendments. The updated table 2-1 has been incorporated into the draft 2021-2040. I'm going to do this I've got so many dates I'm juggling. 2021-2040 regional water management plan update. And staff is seeking acceptance of the revisions with or without changes. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the commission for discussion. Thank you.
Any comments, questions for Ms. Rigdon on this item? Not seeing anything for you. Is there any public comment on this item?
Thank you, Commissioners. Michael DiMartini, Meridian Company Engineering. Yeah, regarding this item, there's a lot of activity that's been going on in the last number of years, and my attention is drawn to what the item number is here. It's the basin 100 and 100A. Regarding that basin, which is rather important, or those basins, it's not clear to me that the numbers are accurately reflecting the limitations of the water available and or the total amount of water. So with regards to the first item line, not line, excuse me, the first column on page, is it 210, regarding Cold Springs, it says 4,766 acre feet. There's a note 6 referenced in the fourth column, and there is no note 6, so I'm not able to discern exactly what's included in that first column. There is a comment note that talks about 1,105 acre feet. I'm not sure whether that's part of the other column or not. But all in all, it looks like there's a possibility that the numbers need to be looked at in light of what's going on at the district court in Reno and the matters at the state engineer's office. And in light of also the final approved minutes. Thank you very much.
Is there any other public comment? All right, we'll bring this back to the board. Any discuss? Yes, sir.
Ms. Rigdon, if you could comment on the footnote 6 issue, because that clearly is, I'm sure it's just a clerical error, but.
Thank you, Commissioner Drinkwater. Yes, that is a clerical error, and I'll double check that, but it looks like we just didn't consistently, we skipped 6 in the notes. So I need to make sure, I will double check those numbers and make sure that they align with, because number 5 should be Lemon Valley, and it looks like number 7 should be number 6, and number 8 should be number 7 on those notes. And I will make those changes.
Any other comments or questions? Leave it up to the board for a motion of some sort, since this is an action item. Mr. Enlow?
I just want to say that this table takes a lot of work, and it's constantly evolving with new information. I think right now it's a very good representation of the sustainable water resources that are available to this community. There will likely be additional changes as we go forward and updating it with new and better information, but for the purpose that it's being used for, I think it is more than adequate. So I would move that we approve the water baseline table subject to the clerical edits that were raised during public comment and your comments. Thank you.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Enlow, a second by Martini. Is there any further comment? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you. Takes us on to item number 6, which is action, discussion, and possible direction to staff and acceptance of revision to draft Chapter 4, Wastewater and Effluent Management for the 2021-2040 Regional Water Management Plan. Ms. Rigdon.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the Commission. In June, the Commission decided that they needed a little bit more time to take a look at some of the revisions that were necessary for Chapter 4. So we worked with a few of the members of the Commission and made those edits and revisions, and we are bringing Chapter 4 back with the following edits. Section 4.4.1 pertains to Golden Valley, and the discussion that was included addresses the recharge project suspension in 2017. Section 4.4.2 addresses Spanish Springs and includes an updated discussion on the phase sewering of existing septics and removing dated information that was no longer relevant in that section. Section 4.4.3 discusses Warm Springs and was updated to reflect the potential for a future wastewater treatment plant to serve planned residential development in that area, and also to allow for some discussion for much of the area being contemplated for the Palomino Farms Sustainable Water Resources Project concept in that area. Another, just to mention really quickly, as we've included discussion in that chapter on the effluent guidance document that's being developed by the Regional Effluent Management Team. That effluent guidance document is anticipated to be completed in November, December. We've included discussion on both the American Flat project and the Palomino Farms concept project. So we don't foresee, we think that the plan should be consistent with alternatives that are brought forward in the effluent management guidance document. However, if the commission decides that some of the information in the effluent guidance document needs to be incorporated into Chapter 4 of the Regional Water Management Plan, we can re-bring this chapter back as an amendment to the plan after the effluent guidance document has been sufficiently vetted and approved by the commission and recommendations are made. So with that, staff is proposing that the commission accept draft Chapter 4 revisions with or without changes, and I'll turn the discussion back over to the commission. Thank you, Chairman.
All right, thank you. Are there any further comments for staff on this item? Not seeing any. Is there any public comment on this item?
Thank you again, Michael DiMartini, Meridian Company. Sorry to take up all your time on this, but I don't have much competition, it looks like, for public comment today. But regarding this chapter, I just wanted to remind everybody that originally the prior water planning commissions for 20 years at least recognized that there's linkages between wastewater and stormwater and drainage. Very important linkages that need to be considered. And I think last year the commission decided to separate that chapter into a couple chapters and address them separately, one of which I think is this chapter 4. So looking at chapter 4 now and trying to recognize the linkages regarding the northern valleys that are closed basins, the linkages are extremely important for a number of reasons, both for surface water and for groundwater, and for availability, sustainability of water in the future. Those linkages don't appear to be present in this chapter 4 very well, and so I think they need to be, when and if the chapter is updated, if not now, it should include those linkages between the surface water and the groundwater, both to quality and quantity. Now, I realize some of the previous meetings this was addressed. The final minutes are not yet available to review to verify that, but I just want to bring that to the attention. I understand the plan is an ongoing process and updated as we go, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? No? All right. Again, bring this back to the board. Comments, questions, possible motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll move to accept the draft Chapter 4.
All right, I've got a motion by Martini. Second by Hauk, thank you. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. That does take us on now to item number 7, which is action, discussion, and possible direction to staff on the final review and acceptance of revisions included in the 2021-2040 Regional Water Management Plan. Ms.
Thank you,
Rigdon.
Chairman, and members of the commission. Kim Rigdon for the record. I realized I didn't put myself on the record the last few agenda items, so I apologize for that. So first, I'd like to take a moment at the beginning of this report to begin by acknowledging the many contributors to the plan update. Jim Smitherman and Chris Wessel, our previous WRWC program managers, have been responsible for facilitating the development of this plan and preparing multiple amendments to this plan over the years. Much of this particular update has been done by Chris and Jim prior to me coming on board in October, and we appreciate those efforts. There were numerous contracted consultants that put a lot of work into the revised plan. Rick Warner with Warner & Associates, Catherine Hansford with HEC, Jill Sutherland and Lynn Zong with Resource Concepts, Deborah Lemke with NCE, and Blagadelic with AECOM, who spent many long hours working with Birgit and myself to package the final draft in preparation of today's meeting. So we appreciate them. Staff working under this commission's leadership and representing the partnering agencies were instrumental in providing information and authoring revisions to this plan. From the time I took over to wrap up the plan update, Alan Jones, John Hewlett with Washoe County, Joe Coudrier and Carrie Lanza with Reno, Teresa Jones with the Stormwater Committee, and Cara Steeland with Tumwa, who is now on our board. Welcome. All contributed significantly to supporting me and getting the information that I needed to get these revisions done. Also, our fellow Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Director, Jeremy Smith and Damian Kerman, updated all of the figures in the plan, and they look fantastic. So we're really proud of that. And finally, I wanted to sincerely thank the many members of the commission here today who authored multiple sections of the plan and who have tirelessly revised, reviewed, revised again, and given me helpful feedback and provided support and resources through the entire process. I'm very humbled. And with that, I am happy to report that staff has completed the revisions to the revisions for chapters 1 through 10 of the draft 2021-2040 Regional Water Management Plan. You'll find included in your board packet under item 7A a summary table of revisions prepared by staff. And item 7B, you'll recognize the never-ending update schedule we brought to you every single meeting to outline when this plan was going to be completed and what that schedule looked like. Should the commission accept the draft revisions, the final draft plan will come before the commission under item 8 for approval during the public hearing portion of this meeting. As you can see in the schedule, if the final draft plan is approved, under item 8, a hard copy of the plan will be made available in the Community Services Department front desk for a minimum of a 30-day public comment period. Our requirement there is to make sure that before we bring it to the WRWC, we have a minimum of 30 days for that plan to be made available for review. I built in a buffer in that schedule we discussed before in previous meetings to keep September open in case there were any major revisions that needed to be made. I still intend to bring the plan to the WRWC during a public hearing for adoption in October, but that gives us, if we put the plan out for public comment for 30 days now, we can take those comments and compile them and bring them back to the commission, and the commission can determine if there's anything needed moving forward from that point. So this agenda item is being brought before you so that you can take a look at all the revisions of the plan before we go into the public hearing component of the meeting and have a discussion on whether you want to approve the plan as is or with changes, approve all the revisions to the plan. So with that, I will turn it back over to the commission for discussion, and staff is seeking acceptance of the final draft revisions to the 2021-2040 plan.
All right, bringing
Thank
us
you.
back to the commission. Are there any questions for staff? Mr. Enlow.
I just wanted to make a comment that the table that you put together that outlined the significant revisions to the plan update, I think was very helpful for all of us in being able to put it all together as far as the changes and updates. So I just want to say thank you because that made our review much easier. Appreciate it.
Any other comments, questions? Do you want to make one verification that this is a draft plan and then that the final plan is actually adopted by the Western Region Water Commission? So just trying to make sure we get to the point of public comments period is after the draft plan is accepted. And so members of the public now will have the opportunity, if this passes and we do go through the public hearing, to actually provide comment to the plan for the WRWC's consideration of adoption of the final plan. So I just want to make sure that that was clear and on the record. So,
Thank you. Yes, that's the process.
okay, very good. Any other questions? How about public comment?
Thank you again for the opportunity on this item. Michael DiMartini, Meridian Company. I appreciated the clarification by the chairman regarding the draft of this plan. It was a little confusing to me. It almost looked like this was going to be a final approval that would be recommended then to the Water Planning Commission. And I think in the past, just for information, the Water Planning Commission has tried to treat this commission as the formulating body for the final plan. And so it's important to note that this commission would merely be recommending this plan to the Regional Water Planning Commission, or the Water Planning Commission. And it is just a draft. So another comment would be that with regards to the public needs time to digest and review the proposed draft before they go to the public hearing regarding the draft. So in line with my comments on the agenda formation, it would be prudent to at least delay the public hearing to a time that gives the public at least 3 days to digest the plan, to make comments regarding the draft, and not this afternoon. So I would suggest that that be done, and as well as having the public hearing at convenient times for the public, as well as having the public hearing or the public be allowed to have all the final minutes available to them predating that hearing, and that they be allowed to comment electronically if they so desire, like most all other agencies are doing in these days. Thank you very much.
Is there any additional public comment? All right. With that, I'll bring it back to the board. Any further discussion? All right. Would entertain a motion. Mr. Enlow?
Just for clarification again, because this is a little confusing, but I think your comment is helpful that what we're doing is we're accepting the recommended revisions to the draft plan under this agenda item.
That's correct.
And then can I ask a question? So the public hearing that follows is basically a public hearing to put forth that draft plan to the public and provide them with the time to review and comment on it. Is that correct?
It is a public hearing to,
Sorry, Kim Rigdon for the record. Item 8 is a public hearing to approve the plan by the commission. So we approve the plan, the commission approves the plan, and I scheduled it this way because I wanted to give everybody enough time to review it. If we wanted to push the public hearing forward to September, we would still have time to push it forward to September. But yes, item 8 is a public hearing to approve the plan by this commission, and then we put the plan out for public comment and review, and we would compile those comments and bring them back to the commission to make a determination on whether they were material comments that needed to be addressed in the plan. Otherwise, historically, those comments have been included as an appendix. We haven't in the past received a lot of comments, and I don't know, maybe Jim can chime in on this one, but my understanding is there hasn't been a lot of comments that would require material changes to the plan. So I put this on the schedule so that I could give the board the opportunity to go ahead and approve the plan if they wanted to consider that. And if you wanted to push the public hearing out to September, we could push the public hearing out to September. That's up to the board.
Mr. Drinkwater.
But item 8 is a formal approval of the plan by this commission.
Okay.
Okay, so just to be clear, if we approve, the current item before us is simply to accept the final comments, changes to the draft. Item 8, the next agenda item purports to have us approve the draft, put it out for public comment. If we delay item 8, can we still put what we have as an unapproved draft, if you will, out for public comment? Or do we necessarily have to approve the draft before we can circulate it?
You would have to, no, item 7 would satisfy the revision, approving all the revisions to put the draft out for public comment. I think maybe I need to refer to council for this one.
You could put anything out to public comment that you want, but the way that, I think it's worth referring to the the statute that governs all of this. So everyone's correct in how they've characterized this so far. This item is to approve the revisions to the plan. The next item is to consider approving the plan as revised pursuant to this item. That approval will then essentially effectuate a recommendation to the WRWC to approve the plan as you've approved it. Between now and then, the plan will be posted for public comment for a period of 30 days. That is required by statute. There is no 30-day requirement for posting prior to this meeting. In other words, the procedural obligation now at this point is to comply with open meeting law and make materials available to the public, which we have done. We also have had to comply with one noticing requirement that is specific to the public meeting that's happening in the next item, which is to notice that meeting in a paper of general circulation in the county, which we have done for 10 days leading up to this. That said, again, once you approve it on the next item as revised per this item, if that's how this goes, it'll be posted for public comment for 30 days. That WRWC meeting at which they will consider the plan approved by you will also be specifically noticed for 10 days in a paper of general circulation. As Ms. Rigdon has indicated, she has contemplated a schedule that is actually slightly different than what the statute requires and provides an additional element of public comment, which is that this body will meet before the WRWC meets to approve your recommendation after the 30 days for public comment has run, at which time you could consider any public comment that is made between now and then and revise your recommendation to the WRWC if that's what you would want to do. At which point that revised report would be posted for the public for 30 days, and then the WRWC would consider that. It's also worth pointing out that even the WRWC's consideration of the recommendation, it's not an up or down on what you recommend to them. The WRWC can recommend changes, at which point those changes would come back to this body. You would then consider those changes. If you want to accept them, you can. If you don't have to. And then there's some other steps in the process that unfold at that point. But I think suffice it to say, there's a substantial period of public comment that starts essentially following today.
Okay. Any other comments? I just do have one other question. Maybe Ms. Rigdon, you can explain to the public, the vast public in the room tonight or today, what the process is for receiving that public comment.
Thank you, Chairman. So the process for receiving public comment currently, after this meeting, upon plan approval, we will be posting the entire plan at the front desk at the Community Services Department, where they can pick that up and take a look at it and leave comments at the desk. They can also download the entire plan or individual chapters of the plan from both the WRWC website and the Northern Nevada Water Planning website. They are already on those websites and have been for a few weeks now. As chapters were approved by the commission, they were also posted to the website. So those chapters that have been approved all along have been on the website since this process began, I think in 2019. So many of the chapters have been available for a few years on the chapter. The only ones that weren't available were the ones like Chapter 4 that was recently brought. We did not have that draft up there. So in the next 30 days, they would have an opportunity to really dive into Chapter 4. Comments can be received. We're going to post on the website that comments can be received via the wrwc@washoecounty.gov email address. So we'll have a link on the website built in where they can click on that, and then they can email us comments directly if they'd like to do that. So we will be implementing a digital process in that way. If anybody needs assistance, we'll have a phone number that they can call. They can call Jen, and we can set up a direct email to either any one of our staff members that can take comments from that method as well. So.
All right, thank you very much. All right. Contemplate a motion.
I'll take it. Nobody's jumping at it, so I'll keep it moving. So 7 is the easy one. I think I move to approve the revisions to the draft 2021-2040 Regional Water Management Plan.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, that will take us on to item number 8, and I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing for action, discussion, and possible approval of the 2021-2040 Regional Water Management Plan Turn this over to Ms. Rigdon.
Thank you, Chairman Solera. Turn on my mic, sorry. Thank you, Chairman and members of the commission. So item 8, my presentation is pretty short and sweet. According to the WRWC Act, the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission must hold a public hearing on the proposed amendments to the Regional Water Management Plan before submitting it to the WRWC for adoption. This agenda item was noticed in accordance with the Act requirements, including a 10-day noticing period, and staff is seeking commission approval of the draft 2021-2040 Regional Water Management Plan with or without changes. And with that, I'll turn it over to the commission for discussion.
All right, thank you. Since this is a public hearing, why don't we go ahead and hear from the public? Was there any public comment on this item?
Thank you. Appreciate it again. Michael DiMartini, Meridian Company. Yeah, regarding this item, I think the situation that I believe is relevant will be beneficial to all the public that may be affected by this plan would be that this matter go forward with the continuation and have a evening session or at some other time on the weekend, whatever's convenient, to allow the public, should they desire, to make comments regarding this important plan. It would be better to do that earlier than later. So I realize that in September, at the end of this process, there'll be another public hearing or hearing. It would be good to allow the public to participate at this time so that everything can be properly taken care of later. And so with that, I would recommend that there be just a continuation of this hearing today and the public notified, given a 10-day notice so that during the 30-day period, they could actively participate in this process. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? All right, I will bring that back to the board. We are in a public hearing. Is there any question, comment, concern, discussion by the board members on this item?
Well, Mr. Chair, I'll make a comment. I think we've been at this for a long time. I commend staff's hard work, all staff. I think the plan is ready to enter into its next phase, which is what I view as a very open public comment period, 30 days available in multiple forms. Comments can be received in multiple forms, so I would support a motion to move this forward.
Is that a motion?
I will make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this item?
One additional comment. Not insensitive to Mr. DiMartini's comments, but I feel the plan itself is available online 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So the public has access to it. They have electronic access to staff to provide comment or to seek answers to questions. So unlike previous year, Mr. DiMartini referenced previous adoptions of plans like this where we had evening or weekend meetings. That was in a time when things weren't so readily available around the clock on the internet. I think there's an adequate process available over the next 60 days before the WRWC sees this for the public the engaged public to provide meaningful comment and an opportunity for this body to take that comment and potentially make revisions should that be material, as Ms. Rigdon said. So I would, do we have a second already? We do, then I would be in support of the motion.
All right, no, I appreciate those comments, and I also wanted to throw out there that I think all of us up here are appreciative of all the staff time and effort that has gone into this plan to this point. I know that certainly my staff has spent a lot of time, and all of your staffs have spent a lot of time, and many of you have spent a lot of time on this. And so, 3 program managers deep in this plan as well. So I wanted to make sure we acknowledge that as well. So thank you very much. And with that, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passes unanimously. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing. and move on to item number 9, which is action, discussion, and possible approval of Resolution 22-01 to recommend the adoption by the Western Region Water Commission of the 2021-2040 Regional Water Management Plan. Ms. Rigdon.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the Commission. Kim Rigdon for the record. So upon approval of the Regional Water Management Plan update, the draft 2021-2040 Regional Water Management Plan update, the WRWC Act requires the Water Planning Commission to recommend the amended Regional Water Management Plan to the Western Regional Water Commission by resolution. Staff has prepared a draft resolution 22-01 included in your board packet for approval and signature by the chairman. Upon approval, Resolution 2201 will be presented to the WRWC tentatively at a hearing on October 19th with the final draft 2021-2040 Regional Water Management Plan for adoption. Staff is seeking approval of the draft Resolution 2201 and direction to staff regarding forwarding the recommendation to the WRWC for plan adoption. And with that, I'll turn it over to the Commission.
All right, thank you. Are there any comments on the draft resolution? Seeing none, do we have any public comment on this item? Okay. With that, I'll bring it back to the Commission. Mr. Martini.
I've got a question. Kim, could we consider delaying this action until next month to see if we do get public feedback and what that feedback could be before we do the resolution to formally recommend it up to the WRWC?
I'll defer to council, but I'm pretty sure that this item could come back in September.
Yes, we could defer the resolution. We just have to keep in mind that the noticing provisions for public comment and noticing the WRWC meeting will have to run from the time that this resolution is issued, because this is the formal recommendation to the WRWC. It comes in the form of this resolution.
Thank you.
But the process Ms. Rigdon has developed will accommodate that. Right? Yep.
Any other comments? I am open to a motion.
We'll see if you don't mind, sir. With the commission thinks, I move to continue this item to the regularly scheduled September meeting of the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I do want to verify with legal, that means that the 30-day period would actually then begin after our September meeting.
The plan would have to be made available for 30 days following the issuance of this resolution. I think Ms. Rigdon could post it now after this meeting, and it would just be out there for 60+ days.
The plan is already posted, so it's available for public comment. I think it's a minimum 30 days is what my understanding was. So,
Mr. Chair, given that information from the program manager, I withdraw my second.
I have a motion without a second, so that motion fails.
Okay.
Anybody else like to take a stab at this? All right, I'll go ahead and take a stab at a motion. I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve Resolution 22-01 and recommend adoption to the WRWC of the 2021-2040 Regional Water Management Plan.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. That will take us to item number 10. I believe technology is caught up with us. So we have action, discussion, and possible direction to staff to advance a recommendation to the WRWC to make a determination on the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency 2022-2042 consensus forecast for Washoe County. And Mr. Smith from TMRPA is here. Thank you very much. So we'll go ahead and take a 5-minute recess. We'll be back at, let's call it 2:21. All right, it is 2:21. We have technology, so I'm going to call the meeting back to order and turn it back over to Miss Dr. Smith. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. I'm Jeremy Smith, the Director of the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency. Glad to be here today. Happy to be back in front of the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission. It's been a while. And nice to be co-presenting with one of my regional counterparts, Kim Rigdon. We're today talking about the Washoe County Consensus Forecast, which is a process we do every 2 years at regional planning to look out 20 years and forecast the amount of folks we think will be living in Washoe County at that point. So why, and you've probably seen this slide before if I've been here when you've been here to do this, but why is it called a consensus forecast? It's really because we use multiple independent sources to minimize bias. So we get 4 independently created forecasts of the future and average them together to create our consensus forecast look at 20 years out. So that's kind of the original intent of why it's called a consensus forecast. But I also enjoy the other concept, which is it becomes this tool for long-range planning, and it ensures that all of the jurisdictions and all of the affected entities that are looking at planning for the future of our region have the same forecast at their disposal to use as one of the principal means through which they will view that future, right? So at least we're all looking at that. You know, it doesn't mean that you couldn't look at some other forecast and bring that in too, but everyone is required to acknowledge and use the consensus forecast. So at least it gives us some consistency across all of the different planning entities. Okay, so here are the 4 sources that we use. It's Woods and Pool, that's a national forecasting house. Also IHS Markit, they're another national forecasting house. The difference in price between those two is phenomenal, but we continue to use those 2 products to help us. And then we also use 2 local sources, the State Demographer, which puts out a projection every year rather. And Sean Stoddard over at the Truckee Meadows Water Authority has a long history of providing a statistical forecast or projection of population growth in the region, and we make sure to incorporate that as well. So those are our 4 sources. And here's what it looks like this time through. So take a second, unpack the lines. There's a little bit of a overlap there with the legend, but basically going from 2022 on the left all the way out to 2042 on the right. In terms of big numbers, the last certified estimate, which is really what we use every year, every time we do this as kind of the touchstone to start from, is from the State Demographer, runs it through, the governor certifies it. That happens about a year behind. So the last one we have access to is July 1 of 2021. That number was 485,113 people. So we basically take the average of 4 sources and we hook it to that point so that we have kind of a consistent line that goes through. But then we take it out to 2042. Again, it's an average. You can see the dashed line there. And we're forecasting 587,479 people. And that ends up being, depending on exactly where you start, about 100,000 people added to Washoe County. Very similar to what I said 2 years ago, and very similar to what I said 4 years before that. So we're really on kind of a similar glide path, and I'll show you that now. Well, before we go there, you can take a look at the 4 sources. So you can see Woods and Pools, that green line, always very straight, always the highest. Then we have, interestingly, the red line is the State Demographer. Usually the State Demographer has been a little bit lower than the others. We have a new State Demographer now. And so while the methods are pretty much the same, some of the interpretation and some of the information that's being put in maybe has changed. So it's a little bit higher. Then we have Sean Stoddard's coming in, I believe, in the darker color down below. The very bottom one is the TOMO projection, and the right above that is the IHS Markit. So at the end year, they look different. But if you look at the beginning years, they're all very consistent, pretty close. And I think that really comes into play when you look at this even harder to read graph, which has more lines on it, right? But actually tells a cool story. So that black line is the governor's certified estimate over time each year. You can see it went up in the boom around 2006-07 timeframe, came back down. And then all the colored lines represent all of the different consensus forecasts that we've done since it started in 2003. That was the first one. Then there was like a 5-year gap. Then there was 8, 10, 12, every even year since then. So most of them live down where we are now, where the dashed blue line is, which is the draft one I'm presenting today. There was a time in 2008 and 2010 when the forecasts were those very top lines and they were kind of shooting off into the stratosphere because they really are a reaction to what's happening in terms of the temporal trend of growth. We were seeing that growth. And in fact, we know the crash happened in the 2008 timeframe. And the 2010 consensus forecast was still quite aggressive. And that, I think, is a representation that these national forecasting houses are lagging, right? Our local data is a little bit more real-time, able to respond, and we have that lag factor. So it did kind of persist, but then most everything else, including the very first one, which is that yellow thing that starts at the far left, have all been tracking in that kind of glide path you can see towards the bottom there, with a little variation out at the end years, as I mentioned, but generally good agreement. So feel pretty comfortable that we're on the right track with this year's forecast as well. That's that story. Okay, moving on to the employment story. We don't really look at employment in terms of the Identify Sustainable Water Resources, but I wanted to bring it to you because we have it. And right now we've got about somewhere on the order of 300,000 total jobs in Washoe County. We lost quite a few jobs in 2020 due to COVID. When I look at there's always a difference between covered employment and total employment. And by covered, that's those employees that are covered by unemployment insurance, basically. So there's a delta. Can be as high as 36% difference I've seen. You know, right now, this year, it was around 31% difference when I looked at the most recent data. There's two entities at the federal level, the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the Bureau of Economic Analysis. BLS does the covered side and BEA does the total. So we can look back in time, usually it's about 2 years behind, but see how those things compare, and then I apply that difference to basically up factor the IHS market projection, which is provided to us when we purchase that, because it's based on covered employment. So I got to bring it into the total employment zone because we're interested in using this for long-range planning, making sure the RTC and you folks here at the water planning bodies have an understanding of the total number of jobs and that total impact that we can forecast so that we can plan for that. So that's what that's showing. And again, on the order of around 60 to 70,000 jobs. When I look at the covered employment, because that's the thing that's available a little more, you can get the quarterly census of employment wages from the BLS or from Dieter. In 2020, we lost about almost 15,000 jobs because of COVID. They were largely in the accommodation, restaurant sector, entertainment, that area, and some construction too. We've been building back. We recently finished our annual report, which is kind of a neat website you can go check out, which talks about some of this stuff. We've gained back about 10,000 of those jobs in 2021. So we're heading back to like a recovery zone, and we're somewhere around 300,000 total jobs in the county right now. If you want to learn more about any of the stats we're tracking and some of the annual report submittals that we get from the jurisdictions and affected entities, you can go to this website, tmrpa.org/TMAR, and you can see all that great stuff. We track dwelling units, population, demographics, jobs, land use change, that kind of stuff is all available there. So with that, I'm happy to pass it to Kim Rigdon for the second half.
Thank you, Jeremy. I think I need the clicker.
You got it.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Director Smith. I appreciate your presentation. And I'll move forward with the next portion, but I have to tell you, it's always difficult to follow you because you're such a great presenter. So I appreciate your presentation style, and I feel like I'm on an infomercial promoting the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency. They're so great. I've really enjoyed working with you, not only on the Regional Water Management Plan, but also coordinating and learning more about the consensus forecast and then our analysis and conclusions that we come to as far as demonstrating that the population can be served by the sustainable water resources set forth in the Regional Water Management Plan. So if I can work the clicker, because there we go, a little technically challenged there. So as Jeremy said, the consensus forecast population is 587,479 persons. That's the first step in this process, is making sure that we understand what the population projections are that are coming out of Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency's forecasts. It's our portion of this is to then do an analysis of the sustainable water resources and water demand projections to then present to the WRWC and recommend to the WRWC that we can support the population projections moving forward. So building on what Jeremy said, the part 2 of the analysis is looking at the estimate of potentially available sustainable water resources. And as you could see, and you just approved in the 2021 draft Regional Water Management Plan, the sustainable water resources set forth in that plan is 192,988 acre-feet annually. And that comes from 3 different kinds of sources. It comes from the TROA, Truckee River System. It comes from groundwater basins in southern Washoe County. You can see the figure. Jeremy actually created that figure for us, I think, a few years back. And groundwater basins that have municipal development within reasonable reach of the planning area, and those include Smoke Creek Desert, Dry Valley, Red Rock Valley, Bedell Flat, Antelope Valley, and Warm Springs. So we have, I'm sorry, I probably misspoke. We have areas with municipal development in the central planning area, and then we have some that don't necessarily have municipal development occurring currently in some of the outlying areas, but they are within reach of essentially water importation projects. So the estimated sustainable water resources, a couple years ago, I believe it was during Jim and Chris's time, staff had decided to do an exercise where they determined, well, what if there were no additional water importation projects? What if just the developed resource, what would it look like if we were just to determine whether the sustainable water resources could be met with existing development of municipal resources? And they came up with 143,800 acre feet annually from the Truckee River System, TROA, the developed groundwater basins, and the Fish Springs project. And so you can see that that number, when you look at the consensus forecast population and the water use projections, which I need to go into the water use projections, that number is well above the water demand projection moving forward for the next 20 years. So the water use projection, how do we come up with the 108,000 acre feet annually for the water use projection? Typically in the past, and I included in your packet, there's a history, I don't know if you got a chance to review, I gave you a history of since the inception of the WWC in 2010 up through today, the determinations that have been made. So you should have a history in your packet of what determinations have been made, what those water resources look like, what the water demand looked like. And as I was digging into the information, it looks like TUMWA has done their water demand projections. Sean, I believe, helps out with that every year or every 5 years when we do the update. He provides those water demand projections working with Jeremy and working with staff to determine what that looks like. And so we can include that into the draft Regional Water Management Plan, Chapter 7. So that's also included in the water management plan. Those numbers, I believe, and Jim, I might need your help with this, are projected through TUMWA's service area, and then Sean takes the number that the water demand projection in the TUMWA service area. He gets a coefficient that he can use per person, to multiply per person for water demand, and then uses that to multiply by the population of the balance of the Washoe County. So it is an entire Washoe County population projection. I wanted to make sure I was correct on that. So we have 108,000 acre feet annually projected for 587,479 persons. And when you do the comparison, we have a sustainable water resource that's well above the water demand projections outlined not only in the plan, but in the consensus forecast. I apologize. So you might be wondering why in 2040 the water demand projection, we're using the 2040 water demand projection. And in the past, because TUMWA updates the water demand projections in alignment with the Regional Water Management Plan update, we don't have a projection out to 2042. So you might be wondering, well, why aren't we projecting that out to 2042? It was the population projections was a 1.3% increase in population. And so when you translate that and multiply the water demand by 1.3%, then the water demand only went up about 1,400 acre feet. So it was a minimal increase for the time and effort that it would have been to have TUMWA go ahead and update that water demand projection. So we decided that it was a better use of resources to not go through that update. It takes it takes about 2 weeks for Sean to go through that exercise. So in conclusion, the developed and available sustainable water resources of 143,000 acre feet, or 143,800 acre feet, that's the number that, without any additional importation projects, is more than sufficient to serve the 2040 2042 consensus forecast population of 587,479 persons. And so I'm going to look at my notes because I'm having a hard time seeing up there, so I apologize. I should have just followed my notes from the beginning. I was doing a lot better when I was doing that. So staff proposes that the draft 2042 consensus forecast population is less than the estimated population that can be supported by the sustainable water resources set forth in the draft 2021-2040 Regional Water Management Plan, and the forecasted population can be supported by such water resources. The Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission may accept the 2022 consensus forecast and advance a recommendation to the WRWC to make a determination that the draft consensus forecast population for 2042 is less than the estimated population that can be supported by the sustainable water resources set forth in the Regional Water Management Plan, and a finding that the forecasted population can be supported by such water resources. So thank you, Chairman, members of the Commission. I'll turn the time back over to you for discussion.
All right, are there any questions for either of our staff members here on the consensus forecast and the water resources available?
I have one.
Go for it.
Sorry, just remind me, and I'm sorry, we go through this every 5 years and I keep forgetting. So you list the population forecast as a Washoe County forecast, and we're looking at water resources available essentially inside the TMSA. Are these apples and oranges, or is the population forecast the greater Truckee Meadows we've corrected for Incline Village?
I think great question. Jeremy Smith for the record. It's for the entire county. Our population forecast, we took it over from the county who used to provide this forecast. And so it is for the entire county. It's true that the TMRPA area of jurisdiction does not include the Tahoe Basin or tribal lands, and that we've seen over the years about 99% of the growth does happen in the TMSA. But we are thinking holistically about identified sustainable water resources for the entire county as well as population in the entire county.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, is there any public comment on this item? No public comment. Bring it back to the board. Anyone want to take a stab at a motion?
All right, Mr. Chair, I will make a motion to advance a recommendation to the WRWC to make a determination that the draft consensus forecast population for 2042 is less than the estimated population that can be supported by the sustainable water resources set forth in the plan.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, passes unanimously. Thank you very much. That will take us on to item number 11, Program Manager Report. Ms. Rigdon.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the Commission. So if you look in your board packet, you will see attachment 11A and attachment 11B, and you've seen these reports before. These are our normal program managers report standing agenda item. I went ahead and just updated the reports through June so you could see we don't really have any activity in July just yet. So I updated them through June so you could see the end of the fiscal year activity. The attachment 11A is our project highlights. And I added a column in here so that you could see fiscal 22 changes through the end of June 30th, 2022. And then also an amendment, if the project was going to be amended, if the project is closed, and a few comments on those projects. So the three highlighted new projects are going to be UNR, the Regional Water Management Coordination, the NWRI One Water Nevada Expert Panel Review, and the TMRPA Shared Work Program. Those are the most recent contracts. If you are closing the One Water A+ Reclaimed Water Feasibility Study that's completed, that one will be falling off of this report, so you won't be seeing that one anymore. You will also be seeing the Carrillo One Water Expert Panel fall off because we have NWRI replacing that contract. So of note, there's a few of our contracts, just for financial housekeeping, that unused funds from fiscal year 22 will then carry forward into fiscal year 23. And the ones in column fiscal 23 amendment, the ones that have an amendment amount there, that will be added to if there's a rollover, and if not, that is the budget for fiscal year '23 for that particular project. So I don't have any particular project updates unless the board has questions on that. And then our standard financial report through the end of the year is attachment 11B. I did want to just quickly tell you that, at the beginning of the year, our cash balance in our account, I know that this report doesn't really speak to the cash balance in the report, but the beginning cash balance was $1.8 million. Our ending cash balance is $1.9 million. So we are doing very, very well financially. And with that, I'll turn it over to the commission for questions and comments.
All right. Are there any questions, comments on the program manager's report? Yes, sir.
Sorry, I'm curious what's going on with Long Valley. 3 years on, haven't spent a dime, haven't heard a word. Just wondering if that project really is a project and really maybe that money should just revert back to the fund so we can spend it on something that.
That's a great question. I'm sorry, I didn't know if you were done.
No, you got it.
Okay, that's a great question. Since I came on in October, I was under the understanding that that project is on hold, waiting on the effluent management guidance document. I think until that guidance document is complete and we know what the alternatives look like, I don't know what the will of the board would be as far as keeping that project on. We've prioritized it in the fiscal '23 priority setting, and we will be revisiting it in the fiscal '24 priority setting coming up. So I will leave that up to the board for discussion.
Okay.
I'm
Just curious, right?
just curious,
Got it.
3 years, so.
Understood. Any other questions, comments? All right, not seeing any. That is a non-action item, so we'll move on to item number 12, is discussion regarding location and possible agenda items for the upcoming NNWPC meetings and direction staff. Ms. Rigdon.
Thank you, Chairman, and members of the commission. Kim Rigdon for the record. So we already discussed that the next meeting will be September 7th here in the chambers at 1:30. Any comments we receive between now and then on the draft regional water management plan will be reported to the commission by staff. UNR is also planning to report on the what we've been calling the wastewater source control plan that they've developed. They've titled it Enhanced Source Control for Regional Water Reuse and Resource Protection. So it's their report on that important piece to getting the NDEP permitting going for the advanced purified water projects. I'll also bring forward a schedule for discussion for the fiscal year '24 priority setting. Timely. I'm hoping to bring forward a schedule for that and possibly schedule a concurrent meeting with the WRWC on priority setting. So that's what I have for the next meeting. Thank you.
All right, any comments or questions, additions? Not seeing any. All right, very good. We'll move on to item 13, commission comments. Oh, sorry. We do have public comment on item number 12. Okay, nope, no comment. Thank you. Excuse me. Item number 13, commission comments. Any commission comments? Not seeing any. All right, we'll move on to item 14, staff comments.
I do have a few staff comments.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. Kim Rigdon for the record. So first, I know that we're missing one of our beloved commissioners, John Zimmerman, and I just wanted to formally congratulate him on his promotion to general manager at Tamois. And I also wanted to welcome Kara Steele in his replacement, hydrologist at Tamois. And Kara and I go way back. She helped significantly on the update to this plan, and she's also been a significant contributor to the Regional Source Water Protection Program that was developed a few years back. So I just wanted to welcome Kara, and it's great to see you here. Looking forward to working with you. Thank you. And that's all I have, Chairman. Thank you.
All right, very good. That takes us to item 15, public comment. Is there any public comment? All right, no public comment. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.